repulsive to us. Because we've heard of frivolous lawsuits, and we've heard of these big dollars for cases involving things like minor burns or whiplash, and it offends us. This case is not like that. I've never, 28 years, had a case where there has been this much need for someone to be helped because of how seriously they've been injured. I'm not going to go through all of this. You've heard us so many times. But I need to talk to you about it because, number one, it's a result of multiplying it out by 58.8 years. Number two, there's an instruction that talks about reduction of present value, and you had the joy of hearing an economic analysis of what that means. And I have to say that when we're predicting the future for someone seriously brain injured, and we're going back to time as old as when that road was built and people were in Ford Model Ts, practically, to talk about economy and to make projections, I don't think that's very fair. We are in a global economy. I even know that, and I know nothing about economics. It's a very different world that we live in. And to go back 60 years so that you can come up with a 0.18 discount rate and multiply it and bring everything down to a couple $100,000 that someone is supposed to invest to take care of them for the rest of their life, I find that very incredible. A zero discount rate is completely acceptable, and that's what we did. We gave you what the dollars were now. We didn't add on inflation and then minus out a percentage for investment and all the stuff that you learned about, and I didn't, obviously. So, this is a little gross, I suppose, but for me, it really kind of talks about the safety net maybe in a little bit more way that makes more sense to me. I used to run down my hill to catch the bus, and I fell to my knees on that gravelly asphalt, horrible road at least once every 3 months, and there was always a horrible scab. My mom used to make me soak in Epsom salt. I don't know why to this day. But scabs have a meaning to me, and what they mean is when you are wounded, for whatever reason, the scab grows over. And then what happens is you're not supposed to pick at it, because if you pick at it, it will bleed and not heal very well. And this, in my opinion, is what the defense has done in this case. To talk about the damages, because they picked at the scab. They want you to pick at the scab. Her past medicals should be cut more than half. They brought in a professor from halfway across the country to tell you, for the first time he's ever testified in a jury trial on a novel theory, that medical bills that were incurred to save her life, almost all of which were from a hospital that he discounted, should be paid on the pennies of the dollar. The economic expert Mr. Mills already talked about. We then have Ms. Johnson, or Dr. Johnson, a lot of professors from the defense. She dropped out of high school, and we should reduce her lost earnings. Also, she had learning disabilities, so that would have also reduced what she would have ever have made. It would have made her potential not so good. And she can work in the future, so maybe she shouldn't get so much money for lost earning potential. She can go to school and get accommodations paid for by the school. She doesn't need an agency to hire and monitor caregivers. She really doesn't even need caregivers that often. She doesn't like to cook or make her bed anyway. She does some housework. She can go to the Department of Vocational Rehab for free. She'll probably drive a car, and that will even reduce further her need for assistance. Doesn't need a case manager, doesn't need a guardian. In fact, we'll let her have our defense expert so he can go to court and tell the court that she doesn't need a guardian. And after all, she has Jesse. It's picking up the skill. And all that's going to happen if we do this is that we will destroy her safety net and literally leave her wounded in a way that she can't recover. Now, the jury instructions say you're not to be ruled by sympathy, and you shouldn't be ruled by sympathy. But the jury instructions don't say that you should ignore the human condition of a case, that you should look cold-heartedly and passionately, totally objectively, and just make a judgment based upon numbers and CEOs and professors testifying. That's not what the law says. You are to take into account the human condition. And granted, it is a sad human condition at times here, but she's also one heck of a brave person. She would not want you to just be feeling sorry for her. She would detest me for asking you to do that. So one of the instructions says, essentially, that you should punish Miss Fogel because she would wear her brace. I invite you to go try this on and walk around. She doesn't do her home exercises as much as she should. She's back to eating white bread for fiber. She doesn't go back to her occupational therapy to see if she can keep driving after she's here. She hasn't gone back and done X, Y, or Z, and therefore you should discount, should pick at that scab and rip a good chunk of it off, because she's been unreasonable. I invite you to read that instruction. You don't judge Miss Fogel by our standards. We're supposed to be judging her by her own capabilities as a brain injured person. Pain and suffering is a element of damage that we have not and cannot have an accountant put up on the board for you. Mr. Chopper didn't do it. None of the witnesses have done it because this is personal to the plaintiff, and this is your job. And we do damages regardless of who's at fault. It's a separate equation. You don't say, well, we don't think so-and-so's at fault, and therefore we're not going to evaluate her damages. They're really very separate. So pain and suffering. What does that mean in a case like this? I really think you would be amazed to know what happened here. We're not talking just about a coma that lasted, was it 42 days? We're talking about her being in a hospital. They tried to move her to a group home, some kind of a living assistance home, a group home, a rehabilitation center. She was in a hospital or under nurse's care in a facility for 10 months, almost an entire year of her life. And when she came back, she didn't get to go back to her apartment that she had with her boyfriend. She had to go move in with her grandma. We have showed you some footage here's the thing about this footage. The total amount of footage of just this one issue is about an hour and a half, and then we have Jesse's, one that made me a little sick actually to watch it, of, I think it was 45 minutes or so. I showed you probably a total of 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and it seemed like, wow, that's really a long time to be watching that. I think probably some of us have even yawned. She lived like this for 10 months. So I do invite you to watch the entire video of that to really understand it. Even if you don't just sit there and watch it, just run it, see how long it goes. This is a constant struggle, and it is not over to this day. Chantal Fogel, I'm going to list some of her issues because they're important when you are looking at pain and suffering. Permanent severe brain injury. We have images. We've heard doctors talk about it. We've heard people that she knows talk about it. We can't really have her talk about it because she doesn't understand it. It's the best way I can describe it as a non-doctor, and I have come to know her fairly well, is that it seems like her brain is on a budget. Because she can operate fine at times. She really can. In this courtroom, she did really good. I was so proud of her. She was so happy she did well. She, if you noticed, she took a break when she felt she was going to cry maybe. She didn't want to cry in front of people. She did really well. But she's exhausted in the rest of the day. Her brain is on a very tight budget. If there's too much distracting noise, if things don't go the way she wants to, if she has fear, if she has more anxiety, all these things come to basically overwhelm her mind. And it's just, that's her life daily. The little synapses between her neurons that Dr. Benson talked about so well, they don't work like ours. They don't rapid fire. We have to go around to figure out how to connect with each other. Her brain is on a budget, and it's small. She has a permanent disability. I'm sorry, my nose is running just a little bit. It's probably your fault.
Sure. Guilty.
She has a permanent disability, and you've seen it because it's visible. I don't know how many brain injured people you know. Maybe you don't know very many. But not many of them have physical injuries because their brain's been severely injured. The emotional suffering, even for a stalwart person like Chantal Fogel, is amazing. I wrote down some things that I felt applied. Personality is different. She knows this. She knows that people treat her differently. It exasperates her. It frustrates her. It embarrasses her. It saddens her. Her world has been made smaller. As Ms. Gaffney says, she rarely leaves her house now. 22-year-old girl. So she's isolated. She's dependent on other people for help. This person who never wanted to be dependent on anyone because she